101 review. Book 101 is all about the books that are around for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He is the author of several books and, of course, The Swarm, no other than Mr. Guy Morris.
Hello, Daniel. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Welcome
Um,
to Book 101, Mr. Guy, and can you please introduce more about yourself?
well, I have a very interesting background. I started as a homeless runaway at age 13, but was able to get an opportunity to go to college where I earned multiple degrees, built complex macroeconomic models, worked with Fortune 500 companies, including companies like IBM, Oracle, Microsoft for most of my career. And I was an innovator, but now I'm retired and I'm writing books based on some of the technologies and geopolitics and prophecy and other religious themes that I've come across in my career, and enjoying the best part of life. Now you're going to
In
see me today. I'm a little scruffy. I'm in my best Hemingway. I've been staying up late nights trying to get a new book out the door. So I didn't have a. I forgot to shower today. So excuse me if I'm looking a little on
n-
the old man side.
no worries, Mr. Guy Morris. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge to the world. Can you explain the meaning behind the acronym SNO Chronicles and how it relates to the story?
SNO stands for SpyNet Online. It's typically pronounced Snow in the book, so it's the Snow Chronicles. And the SpyNet Online is an underground organization similar to some of the other underground hacktivist groups that we've seen crop up. Only this one is really based on the two main characters in the book. Now, the one main character, both of them are somewhat fictional, both of them are based on real people. All the main characters are based on real people. One of the first main characters in the book, and this is a true story, is based on a spy program that escaped the NSA spy laboratories and was never recaptured. And I know that it's true that a program wasn't lost, it wasn't stolen, it didn't break, it escaped the NSA labs was because when I figured out how that could happen and why they would design it that way, they sent two FBI agents to my door. They were pretty upset that I had figured out their special missing program. What bothered them even more was my giddy, snarky attitude about the whole thing. I was just jazzed. I did it. I did it. I did it. I figured it out. I did not was not intimidatable that night. I was in a mood for celebrating. So that's actually the inspiration for the book. So the program that escaped, I've now renamed the Sylvia, which stands for Sophisticated Language Virtual Intelligent Algorithm. And between Sylvia and the main character, who we know as either Derek Taylor or Flapjack, Derek Taylor is actually the name of a dear friend who died in an explosion that was meant for him. And so he's living under the name of an old friend, trying to pretend that the guy who died was really him. And so that sets up the two main characters, and they've established essentially a worldwide underground network of confidential informants and of every walk of life, from government to banking to criminal to espionage, hookers, taxi drivers, corporate execs. And when they need to, they bring these resources to bear into the story. So it's sort of their underground confidential informant spy network that's really managed by this program, the spy program that escaped.
Interesting indeed,
So you could
Mr.
be part
Guy.
of the Snow Network. We wouldn't know it. They don't know who
Yes.
each other is. That's one of the reasons they stay safe is nobody knows who the other is. It's all managed by the program, and so you could be part of that network. I could be part of that network. Your producer could be part of the network, and so it becomes a very interesting way to pull in a lot of different perspectives into the story.
So, Mr. Guy, What kind of research did you conduct to blend theology, prophecy, and technology in believable way?
Well, each of the threads of the story are based on real themes. So the technology based part of the story is based on my knowledge of AI. I was in the tech field for a number of years. Most people don't know, but artificial intelligence, the roots of it go back to 1956, the year I was born. And so throughout my career, I've been able to work on different early phases of it. So I have a pretty good knowledge of, not in details as an engineer would or an architect, but I have a pretty good knowledge of how technology works in a broad general sense. And I've been involved in AI. So most of the research I did there was really more in terms of how the government, how would this technology be used by governments and corporations and banks as of today, knowing as I do that oftentimes what we see on the commercial level. For example, I wrote and published Swarm. Swarm was published in 2020, 2 years ahead of ChatGPT, before the world was kind of aware of where AI was, because I knew of the developments in the laboratory and I was projecting forward. So most of my research there is based on lots of research into technical issues, journals and other publications that most people don't read, talking to and watching interviews of some of the fathers and key architects of modern AI, including former Google executives and a guy who's known as the Godfather of AI, who one of my characters is based on. So that's that part. The geopolitical piece came from my years of consulting in Fortune 500 companies, as a consultant for Fortune 500 companies, where I would often consult with government sectors as well, including the DoD. And my involvement in some of the how I understood working with some of those people, how the government kind of functioned from that perspective, and mainly again focusing on sort of, but I rely a lot on the news because it looks at the corruption of that government. So we'll look at things like the Project 2025, the Russian connection in the last election, corruption and some of what's going on in NATO, for example, what's going on in Taiwan and China. All of these real world issues create sort of the backbone, the real world fiber of the story. And in the prophecy piece, I've actually studied prophecy for probably 45 years, but I came to study it in a unique way that most people didn't. Because I'm a born doubter of a lot of things, I wanted to find a way to actually dismiss that prophecy had any relevance. It was just all vague stuff that people could pull in. So I started off looking for a way to disprove it, but I wound up coming up with actually a technique that actually validates prophecy in an amazing way. And I actually built a program on this. And I won't go into the all the details of it, but I actually built a program to calculate the correlation. In other words, how closely does a modern event line up to a prophetic event? And then what's the probability of that event happening? And then what's the probability of all of the events with high correlations happening in a single generation? That model is the same model that the AI in the story uses in order to decode end time prophecy. So it allows me to get rid of things like dogma and this religion versus that religion, or this denomination versus that denomination. I can talk about the Kali Yuga from the Hindu tradition. I can talk about the Mayan tradition. Of course, I talk about the Judo Christian traditions, but it allows me to look at events from a purely mathematical correlation perspective, much like an AI would. And it allows me to come to the conclusion that prophecy is not about how a deity will come to destroy humanity, but a warning of how we were going to do it to ourselves.
Indeed, interesting, Mr. Guy. Which real world prophecies or religious texts influence the fictional prophecy in Swarm?
I do point to real world events in the series. Swarm is the first of three books. Swarm won the Gold Award for Reader's Favorite in 2021. The next book, The Last Ark, won the Silver Book Award in 2023. And next month, I'm releasing The Image, which is the third book in the series. In each of the books of the series, I will not only quote scripture, but I'll look at real world events that tie into those things. But again, it's not it's sort of this underlying theme that the characters are driving towards, but there's always a fast-paced page turner, sort of time-driven part of the story that's driving the pace forward as well. So it's there to make it more interesting and make it more intriguing and get people to really think about what's going on in the world from a new lens. In the next book, The Image, will deal with some real-world experiments from CERN to create a mini black hole in order to prove a multiple dimensional universe. The Great Reset, which is the World Economic Plan to re engineer the world economy to be driven by AI, which will basically be an AI coup on their part. It will give them a lot more wealth and power. We'll look at the Ukraine and Israeli wars and how they're disrupting kind of our stability right now, and the 2024 election. On the religious side, we'll actually look at the real history of what we now know as the Shroud of Turin, but we'll go back to the first century when it was once called the Image of Edessa. And part of the evidence we bring up of the truth of that are Byzantine coins minted in the 6th, 7th, and 8th century.
Is the AI in your book self aware, and how does that affect the moral or spiritual implications of the plot?
That's a great question. In the first book, Swarm, it doesn't start as being self aware. It's super intelligent and hyper connected, right? Based on its design. And throughout the books, we kind of give hints on that. We don't go into details. We don't want to bore people. But as it goes through the book, it evolves into being self aware. And a key to that transition is coupling with a quantum computer. So scientists, including Nobel scientists, have concluded that human consciousness exhibits quantum properties. So we couldn't even be conscious without quantum properties. And so the same will be true. It's impossible for a super intelligent binary computer to become sentient, to become self-aware, unless we introduce a quantum platform. And right now there's a number of quantum platforms that are pretty much ready for that transition. And I would be very surprised if it's not being tested in the labs right now.
Yes, indeed. Do you see Swarm as a warning, prediction, or purely speculative fiction?
A little bit of all three. When people read Swarm and then Chat GPT came out and they started becoming aware of what AI could really do, they felt that I was being predictive. And there's a warning to that prediction. And the warning is not necessarily that AI is evil or benign. The warning is this is a very, very powerful technology. We're not doing very good job at controlling that technology to keep it from proliferating to criminal uses, um, adversarial uses, warlike uses, lethal uses. How would this technology be used by a sociopathic billionaire or a corrupt CEO or a dictator or a warlord? And so the warning is not just about the technology. It's not a technology becomes evil and tries to destroy the world. The becoming sentient actually is a conflict for the AI in that it reflects who we are, and we're both. We're both good and we're evil. We're both benign and we're toxic. We do good things, but we lie about things. And if an AI is truly studying humanity, it's going to get a very conflicted message. So it's both a prediction and it's a warning, but it's done so in a very, very entertaining way. Imagine a Indiana. My books have been compared called Indiana Jones meets Da Vinci Code with the savvy of an Elon Musk. So there's a tongue in cheek humor to them, I try to have characters that are warm and likable and have courage and good values so that there's something good to anchor the story on. And the AI involved is neither truly evil nor is it truly benign. It sometimes acts in a little bit of both. And so it creates that little bit of, well, we're not sure what we're creating. And that's part of truth. We can't be sure. We don't know. We've always been the most intelligent species on the planet. That's soon not going to be true. And what happens when that superintelligence becomes self aware? We really don't know how it's going to react to us, to itself, to world problems. And so part of the reason I'm writing these books is to explore that near term inevitable event in a entertaining way in order to get people to think about these things, not only that we're doing to ourselves, but how could this technology change us and change society in unwanted ways, unintended ways.
Mr. Guy, as an author, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
My short-term goal is to write books that people love to read. My long-term goal is to get them to think about what we're doing and hopefully make personal choices that help us move away from that or be prepared for what's coming. I hope to, I hope to keep writing until I die. And so this is just one series to really bring out a evolution of a technology that's happening in real time. But I have lots of other books in history and other issues I really want to address. And so I hope I can continue to keep writing books that win awards and get that people love to read and love to give me great reviews on. And I do a lot of book signings, so I get off readers coming back and telling me how much they love the previous book. And so my short term goal is to keep doing that. My long term goal is to write books that really change people's lives.
Good luck to your goals, Mr. Guy Morris, and looking for more and more empowering books like this to come. What will be your advice for those people out there who want to write their own book?
Find your voice, but more than that, find a story that you find compelling, that changed you, that changed your life, that changed somebody's life, that is historical. Start with a compelling story, because characters and settings and this little cute scene and that little cute scene don't matter. It's the overall story that you have to tell, and that's the most important thing to find, is that premise for the story. And it's keep writing in the meantime to build your skills as a writer, but don't stop looking for that one premise, that one story. For example, for me, it was discovering that a program had escaped the NSA spy labs. That was a moment of life changing um, revelation, as was building a computer model to predict and decode prophecy. Those are my stories. But you have to find one. It might be a family story that you want to turn into a great, entertaining story or a great personal narrative without making it a memoir and digging in that deep. Find the story that you really want to tell first, and then that's your first step.
Yes, indeed. And stop procrastinating if you have the passion to write, and share to the world like Mr. Guy Morris. Before we wrap up our discussion for today, Mr. Guy, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, Book 101 review in its fifth season as well. Comedy 101 in second season. Food 101 in its fifth season as well. Geography 101 and Love Letters are third season. And my baby podcast, Mental Health 101. Movie 101 review and music 101 in its fourth season. Sex 101 and Science 101 in its first season. Please do listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. Mr. Guy, if all AI today began decoding religious prophecies, how close would your fictional world come into reality?
Very close. My readers and reviewers, including major book reviewers like Kirkus and Book Life and BookTwib, have all noted how I blend the real world into my fictional narrative. And I obviously can't do it. I try to stay away from real characters because I don't want any lawsuits. The only one I name and I don't care is Putin. I name Putin, but I'm really trying to blend that real world because I want to make these issues to feel relevant to the reader, because they are. So I'm creating fictional. Remember the show West Wing? It was a television show
Yes.
about the living in the White House, and they took real world events that were going on at the time, and then they fictionalized them as to how they imagined people would be responding to them in this fictional world of the West Wing. I'm doing much the same. And so many of the stories, many of the hooks, many of the treaties, a lot of the data that goes into the books are factual data. And I'm just playing speculative scenarios of saying, well, what could go wrong? Or if this really is their intent, what's that going to look like in a couple of years? And so I'm always pushing out a couple of years, but I'm pushing out a couple of years from known baseline facts.
Mr. Guy Morris, thank you so much for sharing your books to the world and hoping for more and more and more empowering books like this to come. So, can you please invite our listeners to support all your books?
Absolutely. The best place to go is GuyMorrisBooks.com. You'll get buy links to Amazon and Barnes and Noble, but you'll also find trailers, review highlights, fact versus fiction pages, and more.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Guy Morris because if you support him, more and more and more empowering books like this to come. So, Mr. Guy, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel. It's been a pleasure.
More to come, people. See you soon.